Young Chinese students, the latest collateral damage in what some are calling Trump's war against academia. On Wednesday, U.S. Secretary of State Marco Rubio said in a statement that the U.S. will, quote unquote, aggressively revoke visas from Chinese students, quote unquote, including those with connections to the Chinese Communist Party and or studying in critical fields. In his announcement on China, Rubio also said the government will revise visa criteria to enhance scrutiny of all future visa applicants from the People's Republic of China and Hong Kong. Now, this comes on the back of threats to limit the number of international students studying in American universities. Why are Chinese students being particularly targeted? Are they the easy target in the ongoing feud between the White House and elite universities with Harvard at its center? And how is this impacting the lives of young Chinese students? Welcome to The Point, an opinion show coming to you live from Beijing. I'm Li Xin. Joining me on today's show, Mallie Prytherch from Hong Kong, Assistant Director in the Center on Contemporary China and the World at the University of Hong Kong. From Washington, D.C., Klaus Larres, Professor of History and International Affairs at the University of North Carolina at Chapel Hill. He was once a visiting fellow at Harvard's Center for European Studies. That was in 2023. From East China's Zhejiang Province, Gong, Professor and Vice President of the University of International Business and Economics, Israel. And last but not least, Liu Xinyi, who has just obtained her master's degree on human development and education at Harvard University. The warmest welcome to all of you. Let me go to Mallie first and trying to help everybody understand exactly what has been going on. Now, the latest is a federal judge on Thursday saying she will order the Trump administration official to not make any changes to Harvard University's international student visa program indefinitely. The move is considered a temporary win for Harvard. Mallie, exactly what does it mean?
Well, there's both short-term and long-term effects of what this temporary order means. On the short term, it looks good for Harvard University. It means that they can continue enrolling students for the 2025-2026 year, and it also means that current students at Harvard University can continue their studies. But on the long term, what it means is the Trump administration will try other tactics. This is just one part of an ongoing feud between the Harvard administration and the Trump administration, and between the Trump administration and higher education in general. So the Trump administration will move forward with other measures, including what we've just seen with forcing Chinese international students to perhaps have their visas revoked. So this is just the start of bigger issues.
Klaus, how do you look at the feud, the ongoing feud between the White House and Harvard? What is it really about? Is it Trump versus Harvard? Is it Trump versus the left? Is it Trump versus the elite? Is it Trump versus the the diversity program? What is it? Or Trump against China?
Yeah, I would say all of the above. The Trump administration, as we know, is a very nationalistic government. They argue from a very right-wing point of view. And it's not just Trump against Harvard, it's Trump against the Ivy League establishment universities. He wants to bring them down a peg or two. He wants to make them less dependent and more dependent on the government in DC. And Harvard, for example, but also Columbia and Princeton University and Yale and similar institutions are much too independent for Trump's taste. They have too much money, and they are also, above all, too liberal. They subscribe what he calls the so-called woke culture. They are in favor of diversity. They're in favor of international students. They need international students. 25% of all international students in Harvard come from China. There's almost 300,000, and they are, that's a significant number of people. And that would eat into the finances of these elite universities if no foreign students were able to attend anymore. And I think Trump wants to go after the universities to cut them down.
John, what is your take on the story? Do you also see it this way? And how did it all started, and how did it end up where we are? The Chinese students being particularly at the crosshairs.
Well, I think it's more significant than just targeting Harvard University. I think it's all pre-planned in the Project 2025. I mean, that's their playbook. It's targeting the entire American academic community, which is considered as very much liberal, very much pro-Democrats. And I think he picked up some themes that are that tend to be, resonate very well with the American people. For example, in one of the things that the Secretary of Homeland Security, Secretary Noem, said is anti-Semitism. Well, I mean, this is a very, very popular theme with American people. The third thing she mentioned is collaboration with Communist China. And together with what Secretary of State Marco Rubio has done regarding Chinese students' visa programs, I mean, these things are sort of red hot for American people. And I think, anti-Semitism against Communist China, I mean, usually they're pretty popular, according to public opinion. So I think, but we have to discern the broader significance behind this is to essentially what I call a academic cleansing. And he wants to essentially have a purge of the American academic community to get rid of the professors that are liberally bent and try to turn the academic community into a right-wing bulwark. And I think that's his real agenda here. I think, this incident about Harvard University is just one thing that popping up. Harvard University is the leader of the American academic community and is particularly resilient and resistant towards Washington's sort of very heavy-handed approach. And that's why it is targeting it. I think, we're essentially entering into an era that American politics is more and more becoming like authoritarian regime. And this is very deplorable that American politics has degraded to and descended to this kind of a level.
Well, China's reaction has been pretty clear. Mao Ning, who is the spokesperson of China's Ministry of Foreign Affairs, she said on May the 29th, the U.S. decision to revoke Chinese student visas is fully unjustified. It uses ideology and national security as pretext. It seriously hurts the lawful rights and interests of international students from China and disrupts people-to-people exchanges between the two countries. China firmly opposes it and has protested to the U.S. over the decision. She also said that this politically motivated and discriminatory move exposes the U.S. hypocrisy over freedom and openness. It will further damage the image and reputation of the U.S. itself, quote unquote. China's reaction so far. But let me bring in a first-hand eyewitness who is a Chinese student who has been studying in Harvard and has just obtained her master's degree on human development and education, Liu Xinyi. Xinyi, welcome to the show, and thank you very much for making yourself available. First of all, congratulations on getting your degree. I understand you just got it today, right? Congratulations, really. Mm-hmm. But this whole event, especially the news about aggressively revoking Chinese student visa, must have put a huge damper on the atmosphere, on the commencement.
Yeah, exactly. Like upon hearing about the proposed policy targeting international students, I was first very felt unsafe. And also it may mean that like the student status will suddenly change and I can't continue to study here. So now part of me is feel relieved because I got my degree today. So well, but I'm also worried, and I felt the anxiety among my fellow classmates and students who are also in the middle of their studies, and this is continue the unsafe environment there, and I also feel the unease for my friends, and this news is not only felt unwelcoming but also made us feel scrutinized as if we were somehow like guilty simply because of our background or nationality. Yes. Yeah. I mean, like
so what's the general mood? Would you say confusion, helplessness, anger? What is it? What are students talking about what can they do to protect their rights. You know, they pay a lot of tuition fee. They put their hearts into this, and now everything looks like disrupted at any moment.
Yeah, so I mean, for the students who are already who are still studying, questions about the visas and academic standing and even personal safety have become far more urgent. And I want to acknowledge that the leadership at Harvard, including the Harvard president Alan Garber and the international office, they actually send us quite a lot of messages to reassure our status and the safety here. And the Harvard will fight for their students and advocate for us and stand for our rights. But I mean, this support means a great deal, but it cannot fully erase the uncertainty created by these national policy discussions. And for the students here, I know some of my friends are also considering transfer to other university or contacting the labs in Hong Kong. And for me, I'm also coming from Hong Kong before entering Harvard. So we're also seeking some backup plan. And this would definitely add up some stress instead of in addition to the already rigorous academic setting. Yes.
How do you,
international students?
Yeah, how are they reacting to the fact that the Chinese students are particularly highlighted and singled out for quote unquote potential connections with the Communist Party of China, which has done a great deal, right, for the Chinese nation, for developing the country, and then for studying in critical fields. I mean, how does that make you feel that the Chinese students have been singled out? Are you worried? Are the Chinese students worried that there may be greater China hate on the campus or beyond in society in general?
I mean, that's a very hot topic among our students. And I mean, some part of the party may think, it may cause some China hate among campus, but we do also get support from our fellow classmates from other, from other international students who are supporting Chinese students in this regard. Especially I'm from Boston, this area may have more free speech and dynamic discussion about this topic. But we do feel very targeted, and now not just for the Chinese student, but for the whole international groups. We are fighting it together, and we hope we can have a consensus or the solution to targeting this problem. Not just just feeling this guilt of association, but also we can have this together, not just about our nationality, because we have seen this in the past, targeting some the critical fields or so-called some area of studies. But we do think it's politic and the threat from the international trade. So we are still waiting for the discussion from the campus and also from Harvard side. Yes.
Okay. Since we're talking about Hong Kong, let me go to Mallie. Mallie, observing from Hong Kong, how do you look at the whole back and forth that has been going on? What does that create for the students? How is that impacting the lives of these young people? And for the United States, which has been benefiting from talents from abroad. Let's not forget Einstein came from Germany, and now it seems like international students are not welcome, and Chinese students particularly.
Absolutely. And I want to point out that this is not a side effect of the orders that are given out by the Trump administration. This is one of the points. Donald Trump said about 3 days ago that foreign students are, quote, taking the places of Americans in higher education. So it's not just a consequence of what he's doing that students will not be coming to the United States. It's one of the points. In terms of being here in Hong Kong, I've talked to several students at the university, and they're worried about the risk, and not just undergraduate students, but most of the international students in the United States are graduate students, and some of them may spend 8 to 10 years doing a PhD. They may uproot their whole families to go to the United States, and they may put 8 years of their life into research that's funded, and then be told, oh, you must leave, you must take your family, and also your research belongs to us because it's funded by the government, so you can't even have that. So there is a bit of anxiety among people who were considering studying in the US. They're looking other places, not just Hong Kong, but Europe as well. I think Hong Kong has done a really good job, a lot of the universities here, in trying to reach out to students that have been affected. I know HKUST in particular, not 24 hours after the first release of the Trump administration saying international students must leave Harvard, they reached out and they said, we'll accept you, come here. And I think this is the right thing for universities worldwide to be doing.
Klaus, I mean, it seems that the U.S. is doing other countries, other regions a favor by, potentially diverting talents away from the United States and either back on the mainland here in China or, in Hong Kong, Macau, or Taiwan, or some other countries, the UK. Is the White House, the Trump administration, aware of what they're doing? What's their logic? It seems it's completely different from what we understand. If you want to progress, if you want to have academic excellence or R&D capability and breakthrough, you need talents. It's not the moment to turn people away.
No, it is clearly a self-defeating policy. It robs the United States of very good talent from all over the world, including China, but also from Europe, from many other countries and continents. And it is really very regrettable. It will have serious consequences for American science and academia in the long run. Whether the Trump administration knows what they are doing or about whether they are aware of the consequences, this is difficult to say. As I said before, it's a very nationalistic government. When Trump says America first, that is really what he means. So he is really anti-foreign. He is protectionist, nationalistic, and clearly in favor of just favoring American students, not foreign students. But I think we should also realize that the majority of Americans are not actually in support of such a policy. Maybe Trump's voters, the MAGA voters, they probably support it. But the Democratic Party, people who voted for the Democrats, they would be in favor of letting in foreign students because it helps and enriches the country rather than
Honestly, if you look at the polls, it's a mixed picture because the Republican camp, they also have their, let's say, favored polling stations. And they're coming out with polling stations which says the great majority of Americans support what Trump administration is doing. So it's very difficult to say.
They would. I mean, they would. They, of course, like to see that is a policy which is supported by the majority of Americans. The people I know, the people on my campus, my friends and relatives, they are, of course, not in favor of restricting foreigners, not letting them go to have their visa interviews and so on.
How would you talk to those who are in support of Trump and help them understand that it's not mutually exclusive to have international students and allowing Americans their places in university? Is it a zero-sum game?
No. It is, but all our economies benefit if we are open economies. That includes exchange of personnel, of important people, of students. We need to learn from each other. We need to exchange ideas and, of course, technology and really educate ourselves internationally, not just in our own country. And that, in the end, benefits each country which does so. And I think that needs to be explained. International students are of value to the country. They do not deprive the country of something. There are always a few bad apples. When they talk about, Chinese students is full of spies, this is of course nonsense. There were a few bad apples among Chinese students, but to generalize that to hundreds of thousands of people is highly unfair. And that also applies to other nations, not just the Chinese. There are some bad apples among European students. To exclude all European students because of that would be very, very unwise. And I think no other administration but the Trump administration who would have thought about some action like that. And I would hope that in the future, after Trump, that will, of course, be reversed.
John, how do you look at what we're seeing here? Because we've seen this before, where the China initiative, for instance, under the FBI, where Chinese students were talked about as spies. To us, it's really disgusting and it's appalling how one of the greatest countries in the world, one of the most looked up to leaders, administrations in the world, supposedly, actually have this kind of racist, discriminatory remarks, and yet this is happening in front of us. Are they not worried, concerned at all how the world look at them?
Well, Liu Xinyi, you used the word discriminatory. I'm ventured to say, I'm going to say it loud and clear. I think this has something to do with racial discrimination. I think it's more than just foreign. It reminds me of the Chinese Exclusion Act, several decades ago, when the United States actually excluded Chinese workers from staying in the United States. I think this has a lot of similarities with that. From a president who said the Hispanic immigrants is poisoning American blood, I can immediately relate to say that he's thinking about the Chinese blood in American academic community is probably also poisonous as well. May well be like that, given the very large population of Chinese researchers and students in American research community. He definitely wants a very white academic community. Look at what he has done with respect to these South African white immigrants. He openly welcomed them, right? Flew over hundreds of these people, while at the same time rolling back immigrants, building up these walls and send National Guards to the border. This is a very racially, discriminatory president. I'm afraid I have to say this. So I'm not shy about saying this, that on the surface, it looks like it's anti-foreign, targeting the American academic community. But I think behind the scene, there is some elements of racial discrimination here. Especially, I think, given the fact that his very important advisor, Stephen Miller, who is the architect of America's anti-immigration program, is very much like this. He has a very strong opinion about the race in American society, and I can imagine that he plays a very important role in devising this policy targeting against Harvard University, as a corollary, Chinese students as well.
Very worrisome at this moment. But Xinyi, on the student level, what are the students thinking at this moment, and what are they going to do going forward? Is there anything they can do to protect themselves, to make sure that their voices are heard?
Well, I think for one thing, some people and some classmates feel a little bit regret to come to the United States. Not regretting not coming to Harvard, but regret that we had this a little bit dramatic president here. And for many
they underestimate. So they thought America was nicer. They thought America was this wonderful place, and now they are disappointed. Is that what you're saying?
Yes. And along with this disrupt of the studies, and we're not just worrying about the future career, and there's a lot of plan being disrupted. Maybe it's not able to work in the United States anymore as international students or the OPT visa.
And a lot of people,
we have to.
A lot of people actually spend a lot of money, right? They are one of the biggest source of income for many universities, and many of these students, actually, their family had to provide a great deal for the students to come to America to study. And what is the potential loss on that part? Actually, they did nothing wrong. Now they're being punished simply because of this disruptive policy.
Yeah, I mean, I think this is very unfair for those families and for international students to be treated this way. And so far, I think for many families and students, they appeal to the either government or university to show their concerns. But actually, we don't know how to react, and we are not sure how our power can be conveyed to the entity or the power authority. So yeah. So that's what we are trying, and to find the backup plans for this whole situation.
Mallie, how do you look at the kind of academic impact, loss of this kind of policy? As I said, about 300,000 Chinese students study in the U.S. on the annual basis, actually one of the biggest groups. And then a quarter of all foreign students in the U.S. are Chinese, and they pay a lot of tuition. So what kind of loss is this going to be if this anti-China policy is really carried through?
Well, it's going to affect small universities more than it will affect large ones like Harvard. Harvard University has a large endowment, and they've been able to use that to push back against the demands of the Trump administration. But a lot of smaller colleges, especially smaller liberal arts universities, depend very heavily on foreign student tuition for their funding. And if they couldn't enroll foreign students, or specifically Chinese students even, many of them may have to close. So this really restricts the power of the educational lobby and the power of educational institutions in the United States. In terms of the future, this will definitely affect how American education is viewed from a soft power standpoint. But the Trump administration doesn't really focus on soft power. They know that what they're doing is being taken in a certain way by the rest of the world, but they don't care, right? This is all part of the worldview of the Trump administration, which is a very inward-looking one, a very domestic one.
Mm-hmm. Klaus, yes. Klaus, how do you look at the way forward, the kind of legal issue, the litigation that will unfold? How long is this going to last, and what's going down with it as the process continues?
This can go on for a very long time. At the moment, the Trump administration has been blocked to go through with these policies, which they want to go through with. That has been blocked by a judge temporarily. There will be court cases. And within 2 weeks, within 4 weeks, that might be reversed again. And the Trump administration may actually start embarking on the very policy which they announced a few days ago. On the other hand, it could also well be that the courts will decisively forbid them to do so. And then they will try to find other ways of discriminating, at least against some foreign students, to get the number of foreign students down. Trump has said that 25% of all universities have 25% international students. He wants to bring that down to 15%. And I think he's quite serious about it, and he will try to find ways of doing so. And as we said before, of course, the rest of the world will be jubilating. The British, the Germans, the French are opening their doors to their elite universities. And there will be a brain drain from American universities to abroad, also, of course, to Asian universities, where students will find a new home because they do want to finish their PhD. They do want to finish their master's degrees, and they will not just stop and go home. They will look for other homes.
John, very briefly, in one word, if you can, is this going to be another win for Trump, or is it going to be a disaster for American academia?
It's going to be a win for Donald Trump, but it's going to be a big loss for America. I think the impact is not just manifested in loss of revenues on the money side. I think the bigger loss is really with respect to the leadership America is going to demonstrate in technological development, in scientific research. The entire American strength is built on that. It's a country of immigration, and if that's gone, America is gone. This is totally against American spirit.
Unfortunately, that seems to be unraveling in front of us. Many thanks to my guests, Mallie Prytherch, Klaus, Larres, Gong, and last but not least, Liu Xinyi. With that, we come to the end of this edition of The Point with me, Liu Xin. As always, you can follow me on Facebook and X using the handle Liu Xin in Beijing on behalf of the whole team. Thank you for watching. You've got The Point.